The American South is now the U.S. epicenter of the coronavirus pandemic. Another black man killed by police has Atlanta boiling over. And what the heck went wrong with Quibi? Here's what you need to know. Good morning. This is Cheddar's Need2Know podcast for Monday, June 15th. I am Carlo Versano, and it is just me today, folks. Jill Wagner is taking a much-deserved day off. So we'll get through just us. But before we get to the news, a little bit of housekeeping I wanted to hit on. You may begin to hear some advertisements right before this podcast. I know ads are annoying, but try and stick with them. It's obviously very helpful to us, and it ensures that we can continue to do this pod in addition to the other things Jill and I do here at Cheddar. And we're also now doing these podcasts on video because apparently a lot of people are watching podcasts on YouTube rather than just listening, which is sort of an interesting thing to me. I didn't know people were doing that, but we're going to give it a shot. So if for some reason, you want to look at my just woken up face every morning, you can do that now. You can go to youtube.com/Cheddar Live. That is our YouTube channel. Click on playlist. There's a little need to know playlist that you can subscribe to if you'd like. Keep listening the way you're doing right now. But please subscribe, like the podcast, write a review on Apple. All of that stuff is very helpful. It really is. So we're also going to try and get these back down to something approaching 10 minutes. I know that we've been going. The whole point of this podcast was to get you done and dusted in about 10 minutes or so, and we've been going more like 20 minutes for the last couple of months, but mostly just because there's been so much news. But I'm going to try and get them back down to 10 minutes. So just bear with me. It may take a little bit of time, but because there is so much going on out there. But okay, with that, let's talk coronavirus, guys. It's been 3 months pretty much now since the pandemic effectively shut down the country back in middle of March, right before my birthday. March 15th was when it all really seemed to come to a screeching halt. But now we have cases climbing in at least 22 states that are reopening, and it's starting to get a little dicey. Arizona, Texas, and Florida now among the states seeing huge spikes in hospitalizations. Also, big spikes in tests in cases, but those cases can sometimes be determined by an increase in testing. It's the hospitalization number you really want to look at, and that's the thing that's really worrying officials in a lot of these states in the Sun Belt, in the Southeast and the Southwest. Health officials are saying the infection spikes you're seeing now are probably probably began over Memorial Day weekend, right? Because there's that couple week lag period in a lot of cases. In New York, infection rates are steeply declining. It's actually incredible how well we've done in the New York area. But Governor Cuomo has threatened to reverse reopening parts of the state, specifically in New York City, if people don't abide by social distancing guidelines. And there's a lot of videos going around from the weekend showing Manhattan looking like, almost looking like New Orleans during Mardi Gras. Just tons of people out on the street, drinking, hanging out, not all wearing masks. So those videos are often hard to sort of make heads or tails out of, right? Because you can have a group of people, but if they're all quarantining together, then it's a little bit misleading. We also know that being outdoors is significantly better than being indoors. So there's that. There's also new outbreaks worldwide in cities that have already tamed the virus that are worrisome. Serious outbreak in Beijing today. They're now relocking down parts of the capital city of China there. And in Rome, an entire apartment block has been quarantined after 17 residents tested positive. So we've also got Brazil now, I believe, has the biggest caseload in the world. So it's just the story continues, and where it gets better in some places, it gets worse in others. And this is really going to be the story, I think, until there's a vaccine. So we just have to be prepared. The other continuing crisis, of course, is the social unrest around the country, which is now in its fourth week, I believe. Fourth week, I think. Protests have flared up in Atlanta over the police killing of a black man in that city. Atlanta police shot and killed Rayshard Brooks in an altercation outside of a Wendy's restaurant on Friday night. So here's the deal with what happened there. There was an initially cordial encounter between this man Brooks and the cops, but officers attempted to arrest him for drinking and driving. They gave him a breathalyzer test. He appeared to break away from the police, and he at one point grabbed an officer's taser before he then sort of ran away and was shot 3 times in the back. So Atlanta's police chief has resigned over the incident. The officer who fired the shots that killed this man has been fired. There's a lot of video. There's a lot of surveillance video of this incident. If you're inclined to watch it to get a sort of sense of what happened, it's not exactly analogous to the awful George Floyd video, but it's not to say it's any less tragic. But the New York Times has a very good video breakdown today if you want to get a sense of that. Meanwhile, the Trump campaign reversing itself and moving the president's upcoming re-election rally in Tulsa from this Friday to Saturday. So they're responding to a lot of anger that erupted about deciding to hold the event not only just on Juneteenth, which of course is the holiday celebrating the abolition of slavery, but also holding it in Tulsa, which was home to some very famous racial violence. The race riots there from almost 100 years ago now. This seemed like a little bit of a troll job from the White House, but again, maybe that's just me thinking that. Anyway, they're going to hold it on Saturday. So on Saturday, June 20th, the president will essentially kick off his re-election campaign in Oklahoma. Oklahoma, of course, is a pretty red state, so this is not a state that he's worried about losing, but nonetheless, he is in trouble in a lot of polls elsewhere. But back to Tulsa, the top health official in the city says he's extremely worried about the risks of holding this event, which of course is going to be indoors. It's going to be in an arena. You're going to have 20,000 people sort of breathing down each other's neck. Not exactly what you want in a pandemic, of course. But the city's top health official calling it, quote, extraordinarily dangerous. He says it presents a serious health threat, not just to the attendees, but also to the president himself. And speaking of the president and his health, he is facing some new concerns today about his health after he was seen appearing to have some trouble walking down a ramp at West Point. Over the weekend, the military academy where he was giving the commencement address on Saturday. He also appeared to have trouble taking a drink from a glass of water. Look, I'm not. I don't bring this up in any way to mock him or to these are sort of hard stories to cover. But we covered it when we covered Hillary Clinton's health during her campaign. The president just turned 74 yesterday. He is the oldest. That's the oldest the president has ever been in their first term. And if he loses, if Joe Biden is elected, Joe Biden, who is 77 and would be 78 by the time he's inaugurated, would be the oldest president to take the oath of office. So these are, these health concerns are things that we have to think about, and we have to think about as a country. I think why we continue to nominate really old people, and just the inherent risks that presents. But the president also, he's defending himself on Twitter. He says this ramp that he was walking down on Saturday was slippery, which is why he sort of appeared to have kind of a halting time walking down it, although there's no indication that it actually was slippery because it was warm and sunny out all day. But alas, just something to keep an eye on. There's also this media story that I find very fascinating to watch unfold. Quibi. I don't know if we've really talked on the podcast about Quibi. This mobile streaming platform launched a couple months. I think it launched in April. The launch has been so bad that there are now questions about whether this company can really even survive. So Quibi is burning through cash. They've burned $1 billion already, and its subscriber numbers are plummeting. The app isn't even in the top 200 free apps in the App Store anymore. That's really bad for a major service that had a huge amount of advertising behind it. Really, top people in Hollywood behind it. It's facing a patent lawsuit. It has advertisers that are really upset with the poor numbers. It's got essentially no buzzy content. And its executives are now being forced to take pay cuts. The reason Quibi's back in the news today is there's a big story in the Wall Street Journal posted yesterday about CEO Meg Whitman, who was reportedly so fed up with her co-founder of this service, Jeffrey Katzenberg, who is sort of a very well-known old school Hollywood executive, but she found him to be so difficult to work with that she threatened to quit. That's according to the Wall Street Journal. Whitman and Katzenberg have reportedly patched things up, and they are blaming the coronavirus for the problems of this service, which is certainly partially true. The entire business model of something like Quibi rests on this idea that people are going to be commuting and looking for short form mobile content, right? Like, what can I watch for 6 or 7 minutes while I'm waiting for the bus, while I'm waiting in line at the supermarket, something like that. So obviously, launching it after everyone's been staying at home, or just as everyone's staying at home, was about as poor timing as you could possibly imagine. Obviously, I could have told them to hold off on that. But they also didn't even make it possible to watch these shows on an actual, TV until just about a week ago. So you have all these people cooped up at home looking for new content. Then you have this service with the new content, but you can't actually stream it on television. You have to watch it on your phone. So the whole thing is just an absolute mess. But it's something to note because again, it has a ton of money behind it, and it's one of these big questions in media, right? But that question being, anybody who's listening right now, has anybody told you got to check out this show on Quibi? Like, no, I highly doubt anyone has that anyone has had that experience. I know I haven't. I couldn't even tell you what's on this service, which just goes to the point that content is always the key, right? If you have bad shows, no one's going to figure out how to watch it. If you have good shows, then maybe people will. Maybe people will give you the benefit of the doubt. It just goes back to the content is king belief in the world of media. But anyway, sports news today, the labor strife between the MLB owners and players over when and how to open the baseball season, just an absolute mess. Seems to be getting worse. Players are now saying that the talks have broken down, and they issued a demand that the league and the owners set a date for return to play by the end of the day today. So we may get some news by the end of the day today. The hope at this point is that they can salvage something like a 50-game season with players taking prorated salaries, but the owners are not doing themselves any favors. They also just look totally out of touch. They just signed a $500 million deal with Warner Media, with Turner Sports rather, about broadcast rights for the next for the playoffs after their contract ends now. So just they look terrible in all this, and I think the players certainly have a point, and they're them saying, like, look, we just want to get paid and we want to go back to play. You figure out how you're going to do that. Also, I did want to mention a little bit of entertainment news. A number of big budget movies announcing new delays as the studios try to analyze the pros and cons of opening a blockbuster, this year, and whether it's even worth it at this point. So Christopher Nolan's big budget movie Tenet is being bumped from July 17th to July 30th. Wonder Woman moving again, this time from August to October. The Matrix 4, which isn't even in production yet, is delayed a full year. The Batman reboot is going from next summer to next fall. The new James Bond movie actually moving up from November 25th to November 20th. But I remember we told you a while back that Tenet is the real one of these movies to watch. If they can pull it off, if they can get Tenet to open big, get butts in seats at movie theaters in the end of July, that's a really good sign for the industry. And if they can't, it's a very bad sign, and it may show you that this whole year is just a wash, at least for Hollywood. And because the studios are now delaying movies like The Matrix and Batman that aren't even shooting yet, what that means next year is going to be just probably as dry or drier in terms of new content. It also raises the question, like, what are they going to do about the Oscars this year if there's no movies to award? But anyway, just wanted to keep you guys apprised on that. I know that a lot of people are watching the movie season to see how the summer movie season to see what it means for the industry that's been just absolutely decimated. But let's leave it there. It's Monday, June 15th. That's what you guys need to know for today. Joe will be back tomorrow. I will see you then. Have a great day, guys.